everyone, my name is April Blackwell and you can find me at Pirate Cat Cosplay on Facebook. This is my shoulder armor for my Tier 5 Druid costume from World of Warcraft. Just like in the game, the front flower blooms and then retracts into the armor. I wore this costume in the Friday night costume contest at DragonCon this year, and I won an award for Best Makeup. Although I was really pleased that the judges liked my makeup, all weekend, whenever I wore the costume, people would ask over and over again, how do the shoulders work? I even met Kamui Cosplay and her husband Benny. I was super excited to meet them because I have learned so much from their tutorials. And she also asked me how the shoulders work. And Benny asked me if I made a tutorial, which honestly, even though people had kept asking me how they work over and over, I never thought about doing that until just then. I explained it to everyone who asked, but I feel like it was hard to understand if you can't see it. So, I'll show you. First, here are all the pieces I used, and I put info for all the parts in the video description below. This is a 45 RPM micromotor. It's tiny. The first thing I did was put the motor in an enclosure specially made for it to protect it. Then I soldered the motor to 22 gauge wire and connected that wire to the wiring on the battery pack. The battery pack has two AA batteries, which is 3 volts. The motor is designed for 6 to 12 volts, but I wanted mine to be really slow, so I cut the voltage in half. Cutting the voltage makes the motor spin slower, so mine spins at 22.5 RPM instead of 45. Then I attached the hub to the motor with the included screw using a tiny Allen wrench. So now you have a circle that spins. I then attached this ugly thing on the hub. It is a small metal tube glued onto a small metal beam. I found these at Lowe's in the hobby section. I trimmed each piece with a Dremel because I needed everything to be as small as possible. Please remember to always use the proper safety equipment when working with the Dremel and the soldering iron too. Something else I learned while doing this is definitely don't hold anything metal while you cut it. It gets very hot. I had to go and get this vice grip thing. After I trimmed the beam and the tube, I glued them together with JB Weld, which is an epoxy specially made for metal. I needed both the beam and the tube for the flower mechanism because I attached the beam to the hub, so I needed the hole for the screw, and I also needed the tube so I could have something to glue the flower into. I even painted the tube green just in case you could see it. Then I screwed it onto the hub using a screw that I shortened with the Dremel and a nut to secure it, and you can see how, as the hub goes around, the beam goes up and down. So now we have achieved the motion we need. We just need to fit it into the shoulders and make sure you can see it. So, as for installing it, you can see here where I've put the motor in the shoulder. I needed to carve away the foam and paper mache because there wasn't enough room in the shoulder for it. I dremeled a hole straight through the armor for the flower to move up and down there, and cut the paper mache away with a Dremel and an X-Acto knife, and trimmed the foam away in a little square here where the motor needed to be. I did this little bits at a time so that everything would fit snugly, and kept testing the mechanism to make sure it didn't hang up on anything. You can see here the beam needs a little room to move back and forth as well as up and down, and the nut and the screw need room to not hit any of the foam as well. After I had the mechanism moving smoothly, I examined how far up and down the beam went on the top side of the shoulder. And it needed to be right at the top of the hole in the shoulder at the highest point, so I marked that off and dremeled it at that point. Once this part was done, I installed the actual flower. This was just a fake flower that I bought at the craft store and hot glued into the tube. Then I checked everything again. I had to actually cut one of the tubes again and reinstall the flower because it was still too tall, even though I had already measured it. Then I just used hot glue to attach the shoulder enclosure into the armor, and also carved away a space in the top of the shoulder for the battery pack. I put the battery pack here at the top because it has the switch on it, and this way I can turn them on and off myself. I used duct tape to cover up the motor area so that it wouldn't get bumped or fall off me if it came loose somehow, but I can still remove the tape to get to the motor if I need to repair it. I also covered the battery pack with duct tape for the same reason. So, here it is. You can see how easy it is to turn the switches on by myself and also see all my makeup that I wore at the contest as a bonus. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful to you.